Dr. Ahmed Jinapo. He's a lecturer with the University of Education, Winneba. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Roland.
All right. And today we're here to look at the issues. We don't want any politics today, so we just decided to take the issues as they are. But let me just ask you, Muntie 3 is supposed to be leaving the prisons today. Your own intake, because we know that this announcement was made by the close of Monday. And following that, we've had extreme criticism and issues have come up, and all the various protagonists have had their own take on this very subject.
Well, let me say good morning to you, my very good friend, and to your cherished viewers. And with regards to this Muntie 3, my understanding is that they are supposed to be released today. I don't know whether they have been released, but I think we need to congratulate them and to wish them the best of luck, because anybody who has happened to have his or her freedom curtailed for just an hour will understand and appreciate what it means to be incarceration for 1 month. And Roland, it's important to state that these 3 gentlemen, for the crime or the offense that they committed, were not freed. Today is exactly 1 month that they were incarcerated. And from my understanding, I'm not very good at the law, but from my understanding, relative to what has happened now, they are not pardoned, they are being remitted. And remission means that the sentence has been reduced, but the sentence stands. If you happen to be convicted by a competent law of jurisdiction, what it means is that it's going to be on your records. And for somebody like me, who works in an institution where records are very important, I may not even get a job in the public sector like where I work. So I think people shouldn't just conclude that these guys committed an offense and they've been freed. No, I think they've been punished. The punishment as to whether it's enough is what has more or less necessitated this debate. And I think with time we'll get into it and I'll speak to it relative to my position on it. But I think they've been punished. I think punishment for me is not supposed to be a means of destroying the person, but it's supposed to be a means of reforming the person. And it's supposed to be a means of, one way or the other, serving as a deterrent to other people. So if you ask me, sitting on this platform, do I take lessons from what has happened to them? I should. Should other people who happen to get opportunity and privilege to speak on radio and on television take lessons from it? They should. Should you, Roland, who happens to get opportunity to speak on that issue, should you take cues and lessons from it? You should, because after all, for the first time, we had a host, a host being in prison because of the way he moderated the whole show. So I think, as a people, we missed it one way or the other, not looking at the lessons and the consequences of those guys' actions vis-a-vis the punishment being meted out to them, and how it can inform us as a people. And one way or the other, I mean, put some kind of decorum when it comes to the political space in terms of the way we speak on certain public platforms like this.
Okay. But the criticism foremostly had been targeted at the president. Before then, we'd had comments coming from a former president of the Ghana Bar Association, Samuel Kudjeto, and comments from a communication lecturer who was one time heading a college in the University of Ghana. We had varied comments. Who thought perhaps the president wouldn't take the decision. Ultimately, he took the decision.
Roland, I think the Muntie 3 have been very fair, have been very unfair to the president. The 3 boys, or the 3 gentlemen, they've been very unfair to the president. Why do I say this? They've been very unfair to the president because these guys go to do their own things. They speak in a way which is not proper. They face the law. They are imprisoned, and even prior to their imprisonment, they as a people did acknowledge the fact that they were wrong. And now they become an albatross on the neck of the president. I find it quite interesting. Interesting in the sense that if these guys did not commit those offenses, would the president have been brought into the whole picture as to whether to pardon them or not? He wouldn't have. But you see, the point is this. I've always said when it comes to the pardon, I don't want to speak to the law, but the reality on the ground is that I think One, if you ask me as a person, I would have advised the president not to pardon them. But if I happen to be in the shoes of the president, I would have. You see the irony? The irony here is that I would have advised the president not to pardon them. But if I happen to be in the position of the president, I would have pardoned them. Because, I mean, this issue, it's more of a political issue than a legal issue. It's more political.
And so does it mean that...
It's more of politics, Roland. You know it. I mean, when you hear people say the president have, what do they call it, has set a bad precedent, the president, by his action, is being discriminatory. The president, by his action, probably is undermining the judiciary. And even me, when this thing came up, I had the opportunity to speak to this issue. I said it's an indictment on separation of powers. But the truth of the matter is that the president is a political being. He's a political being. And it needs to be stated that the president, by his pardon, is not saying that those guys needed not to be punished. After all, they've served 1 month. Why did he allow it to take that stretch of time? Of course, people will say that it had to go through the processes and stuff like that. But he could have pardoned them long time ago. And here, he said that what? It should be remission, not pardon. What it means is that the president consciously believed that what those guys did was wrong and they need to be punished. You understand what I'm saying? But I said it's a political issue because, look, for most NDC people, these guys, number one, they were energizing their base even though they were doing that wrongly. You understand? Two, they believe that these guys were sentenced to this tune because they are what? NDC people. And I'm told that reliably that, look, the NDC itself did their own underground work and stuff like that, and they realized that, look, this thing, it's going to be more or less, I mean, people, the NDC base were not happy about it. So the president took a calculated political risk, whether to energize his base or probably, and I use the word probably because I find it quite difficult to get a huge quantum of floating voters who will say they will not vote for John Mahama because he pardoned the Montier III when previously they said they were going to vote for him. Or somebody who will say, a floating voter who will say, now I'm going to vote for John Mahama because he's pardoned the Montier III. What I'm trying to say is that the Montier III pardon is inconsequential when it comes to what? Floating voters. Okay. That is the point that I'm trying to make. They take
decisions not necessarily?
No, not necessarily, because a floating voter usually is a sophisticated person.
Was the president caught between the devil and the deep blue sea, like was in a catch-22?
I don't know whether I'll use that analogy, but I did say that if the president had to follow either his head or his heart. That is the fact. He had to follow either his head or his heart. And I've heard people say that even from day one when these guys were incarcerated, people within the corridors of power thought that this was too harsh. And from day one, some people have said that, look, this whole processes of going through the Council of States and all those things was choreographed. But as I said, if I was to advise the president, I would have told him that, look, Mr. President, don't pardon them. But if I happen to be in the position of the president, I'll pardon them. Because the president is a political animal, and especially at this particular point in time. It's better, as the saying goes, to have what? One bird in hand is better than what? 1,000 what? In the bush. If the president is sure that, look, by doing this action, I'm going to have my core base energized for them to vote for me, it's better for me to what? Not to gamble over somebody, quote and unquote, known as a floating vote. I mean, Roland, do you seriously think that if these guys were not pardoned, an MPP man would vote for John Mahama? No.
So he took a political decision.
It's a political decision.
But the other aspect is the lessons that as media also we need to learn.
Yes.
How circumspectively should we be operating?
I think it's unfortunate, and it's unfortunate because it looks as if this country is always deja vu. We keep going round in circle.
Because I'm asking this because no matter what you look, there are stations that tend to also lean to the right.
That is it. And you see, I mean, there's nothing wrong with a media network aligned to either the left or to the right. In fact, in advanced, sophisticated democracies, we have a TV station like Joy News, which is what philosophically and ideologically what aligned to what the left or to the right. And I'll give you a typical example. When you go to the United States, we have a TV station called MSNBC. MSNBC is purely democratic. We have a TV station which is called Fox News. It's purely what Republican. And we have the middle, CNN. They decide to go this way or that way. And it's like that with even the newspapers. There's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, when we come to Ghana, Daily Guide has been seen as being apologetic to what? To the opposition. The reverse is the case when you take other papers like the Lens and all those things. There's nothing wrong with that. But you see, the point is this. There's a difference between aligned to what an ideological bloc and speaking in a way that it's not supposed to be the right way.
Ethical or non-ethical? Ethical
or not. I mean, spewing violence.
So you are saying that when you say, despite those positions,
yes,
the basic tenets of any profession should not be discussed.
Should not be. And I mean, when you sit on air and you say that the judges will know their homes, if they misbehave, will kill them. It's madness. Yeah. It's not. It's madness. I mean, who in his right sense?
That is why, for those who say the sentencing was even not harsh,
I agree.
Should have been harsher than it.
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily in the sense that, you see, as I said, punishments are meant to reform, not to destroy. In the sense that if you give these guys 1 year, 2 years, the question that needs to be asked, I mean, there are a whole lot of dynamics that goes into a judge professing a judgment when it comes to a particular case. And Roland, you agree with me that this particular case, based on what the lawyers are saying, the judge had the opportunity to give them either a 1-day sentence to a 3-year sentence. Why didn't the judge choose 3 years?
Within the remit of the law?
No, within the remit of the law. Why didn't the judge choose 1 year? Because they sat down and they evaluated the threat. They juxtaposed that with the person who was issuing the threat. They looked at the socio-cultural dynamics of this country, and they came to the conclusion that even though this threat should not be allowed, these guys maybe for some reason were not that treacherous. But the point that I'm trying to make is that I think, and this is where we failed, even in discussing this particular issue, I mean, scarcely will you even hear anybody mention the lessons that should be taken out of this thing. The lessons regarding the statements that were made by these 3 individuals. The lessons regarding the punishment that was meted out to them. Unfortunately, it's become a political issue. It's become a political
which shouldn't be.
Which shouldn't be, my brother. Do you remember the Sir John issue? Do you remember the Ken Crunchy issue? I mean, are you not surprised that we are back to this thing again? Would you be surprised if next year we happen to be there? Because it's like Ghanaians, I mean, unfortunately, I mean, we seem to be overly sensational when it comes to how many issues have popped up. Then we talked about it, then within a few weeks or months, a new issue comes up. Then we forget about it. As I said, it's unfortunate. I think the focus should be lessons that will be gained out of this particular development.
Imani Ghana has come out with a research finding or report. They did an analysis of the promises of the various political parties, and notably it seems that the 2 main parties and a lot of the smaller ones also don't seem to have their promises they give out to the citizenry or the voters on the campaign platform very much quantifiable and trackable. And it seems, for example, the NPP has come up as to be the tops as far as many of their promises that are just made in vacuum or in vain.
You see, it's a very, very interesting topic. And I say it's interesting because of the players in this particular issue. When I say players, Imani is quite a credible organization or institution when it comes to this country. And not just credible, but it's been very much involved in research. And when it comes to research, there are basically 2 types of research. I mean, position papers and empirical studies. And most of their studies that they've done are empirical based. Empirical based here means that they go on the ground, they have their participants, they have the variables, and they come out with what? With conclusions. You see, my problem with this particular story is that based on what I read and what I heard in the media, vis-a-vis what I heard the chief director of Imani say, it looks as if there's some little bit of a disconnection. Disconnection in the sense that, you see, when you say that political parties in this country, based on the promises that they make, are not quantifiable, is different from they are not attainable. There's a difference between quantifiable and attainable. I'm not an expert when it comes to measurement, assessments, and evaluation, but the little knowledge that I know when we say something is quantifiable is, one, can you measure it? Roland says that I'm going to develop Ghana. What does that mean? It's vague. When you say you are going to develop Ghana, what does that mean? When you say I'm going to do A, B, C, D, it is what? It is measurable.
So your point is?
The point that I'm trying to make here is that from what Imani said that 75% of the proposals that have been put across by political parties are not what? Are not quantifiable. There I agree with them, because if you say that I'm going to revolutionize the health insurance program, what does that mean? But you see, in all of this, it needs to be put in context. Political parties and their promises needs to be put in context. And you see, the other challenge is that Imani is saying that sometimes some of the promises that are given cannot be attained. And they give empirical reasons to that effect. I mean, there's this thing I heard, it's about, is it in Katia Boga or something about granules, where they talk.
It was coming from the CPV presidential
candidate. Yeah, they talked about the quantity that they were going to produce, how much they are going to get out of it. And Imani did a study saying that, look, when you take the land mass, you look at the productive capacity, you look at Ghana as a country, and you look at the world market, how much goes in, it is not realistic. That is a potent argument to make. But you see, Roland, let's come down to the reality on the ground. The reality on the ground is that when it comes to elections that we've witnessed in this country, is it Imani that will tell you that most of the promises that have been given are not what? Are not attainable? You and I know. You and I know. I mean, okay. If for nothing at all, we know from 2012, the most recent, there were a whole, look, if I take NDC as a party, I can talk about 20 things that they said they were going to do in my area that have not been done. 20. I can talk about 20. And even the promises keep going on. If I tell you about NPP, the promises that they gave, I mean, I can talk about what, 20. It's not Imani that will tell me. But of course, they add more substance to it because of what? The research and the empirical nature that it's been. But I think it boils down to the fact that, look, as a people, we should start asking political parties to simplify what they want to do for us. To simplify it. How many times have you taken a manifesto of a political party to read the whole thing? Okay. No, you don't. But I mean, we need a point. Education, what are you going to do?
But going forward,
yes.
Stemming from 2012, there was this argument. For example, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo goes to the BBC, asks how much is your free SHS program or your free second cycle school education policy going to cost? And he couldn't give any quantified. If he had been in government, he would have implemented it anyway. It was a big issue. The NDC also proposed some level of alternative. They will do that progressively, but in the process, they'll build 200 schools. Presently, we know they haven't built 200 schools. They have built, there are over 120, 23 some have been inaugurated, 9, 10, 11, etc. So at the end of the day, do we need the political parties to come and tell us that this is how we intend achieving this is how much it's going to cost, and all? Would that make it more quantifiable and verifiable and trackable?
You see, that particular issue is a unique issue, and
no, we have it many of the
so many times. But you see, the point is this: when it comes to the question that was posed to Nana Addo, and he said he cannot give a figure, the reality on the ground is that I think at that particular time they hadn't even worked out the figures.
So why do you promise then? Because, for example, the president is going around promising.
That is what it is. That is the reality, and that is why I'm saying that at the end of the day, we the people must always ask the questions. Because in the first place, Roland, when you even talk about free, what does free education mean? And that is where Imani comes in. That most of these things that are being talked about are not quantifiable. When we say education is free, what does it mean? In the sense that if you ask me, the components of education are so many. We are talking of school uniform, we are talking of books, we are talking of feeding, you understand? We are talking of transportation. And for me, even that whole argument about education being free in itself is misplaced, especially when it comes to secondary education. Why do I say this? Do you know secondary education is a terminal point? It's a terminal point in the sense that when you graduate from JHS and you get to SHS and you are done by the curriculum, by the objectives and the purpose and intent that surrounds secondary education, you should be able to exit and get into the job market. You should be.
Ideally.
No, that is not ideal. That is the principle and policy surrounding secondary education in this country. The only level of education which is not terminal is primary education. From class 6, you have to go to JHS. That is the policy of our program. From JHS, you have the freedom to what? To terminate. The point that I'm trying to make here is that the curriculum structure of secondary and JHS education is one that is supposed to prepare you and equip you for the job market. But ask yourself, how many graduates from secondary education can fit into the job market of this country? How many of them can get jobs?
Actually, none.
None. So what it tells you is that it's not about the free. It's about how or the quality of education that the people get at that level and the expansion of the job market such that it can attract them. You understand what I'm saying? So if you are training everybody into secondary education, you are training all of them. You are sending everybody into secondary education. And at the end of the day, they graduate and they cannot get jobs. What does it mean? What does it mean? I think at the end of the day, you've done nothing. You've done nothing. So I believe that, look, Imani's proposal should be a wake-up call, not just to political parties, but to we as a people to be critical in our questioning.
How do we do that as the electorate?
This is a basis. If you tell me that you are going to, what do they call it? You are going to, you've done well when it comes to secondary education. I ask you, what did you say in 2012? You said you are going to build 200. 200. How many have you built? Right. Why haven't you, let me finish. Why haven't you been able to build the 200? You understand what I'm saying? If you say in 2012 you are going to give us free secondary education, what is your position now? What is your position? And this position that you espoused in 2012, that program is being implemented. Where is the way, what is the way forward? You don't understand what I'm saying? So I think this particular issue should not be a basis for comparison of who gave more promises that are quantifiable vis-a-vis who gave more promises which are not quantifiable.
The political parties.
But at the end of the day, it should be a basis for we, the electorate, to quiz the what? The people who are asking for a mandate.
Now, for the political parties, why have they embarked on this very trajectory, especially since the Fourth Republic started, in which they give promises that they know or realistically they can't meet?
Because historically and in the past, those the strategies that were used were those that won them votes. Those were the strategies that won them votes. If you remember, in 2000, the year 2000, the first time that we had a change in government where the opposition came into power, what did Kufuor promises? She was sitting in the Tuabapa. That was what Kufuor said. When Kufuor says that she was sitting in the Tuabapa, what he's trying to tell you is that if you look at your standard of living and your lifestyle, and you think that you are not living good, then vote for change. And what do you vote for change? Why do you vote for change? You vote for change so that your life will become better. Is that not the case?
Yeah.
What did Mills say? When Mills was coming in 2008, he said what? Better Ghana what? Agenda. Who doesn't like anything better? Did we ask what Better Ghana agenda meant? Did we ask what Shewasitsinem Netwabapa meant? It has been the what? The basis upon which opposition parties win elections. It's straightforward. When John Mahama was coming in 2012, what did he say? Still pursuing the Better Ghana agenda. That was what he said. Today, what is the point? Okay. Transforming Ghana for what? I think I've forgotten the team.
Transforming Ghana, transforming lives.
Transforming Ghana, transforming lives. Do you want your life to be transformed? Of course, who doesn't want his life to be transformed? So I think electorates all over the world have always... Are
we that gullible?
We are not. Okay. We are not. Let me tell you why. Obama. What did Obama say? Yes, we can.
Okay.
Obama said, yes, we can. And the American people, what? They went for yes, we can.
The University Teachers Association of Ghana has called on management of public universities to drastically reduce the intake of fresh students this academic year to correspond with dwindling staff strength in the department and faculties. I'm asking this because you're a lecturer, so...
But that's also unfair to me. Because if UTAG is speaking automatically... I mean, but it doesn't matter.
You're a member of UTAG?
No, yes, so but I can speak to it. I mean,
this one, you're here independently, so don't worry. I don't know how you can dissociate yourself. It's if they don't do that, then they've given you a 2-week ultimatum. They'll have to take some drastic actions.
It's first of all, I'm a member of UTAG. I support any position taken by UTAG, but on this particular issue, I speak as an independent person, and my comments should not be misconstrued as coming from UTAG. I think that, number one, what informed this statement is something that is the case. The reality on the ground is that we've had some form of shortfall when it comes to the intake of lecturers at the various universities. And my department is even a victim. There's no doubt about it. But you see, Roland, we need to be very careful in the sense that when you have somebody speak, the person speaking, you need to be conscious of where the person is coming from. For instance, when I use a certain term or I speak to a topic, and you listen and you say, but this guy is supposed to be from the field of academia, and he's saying this or that, then it becomes a little bit problematic. Why am I saying this? When we say there's a ban or there's an embargo, what it means is that you cannot recruit at all. Is that not it? You Google the meaning of ban or embargo, it means that what? You cannot recruit. But the truth is that there's recruitment going on today. If you remember, not too long ago, I think the president was at University of Allied and Health Sciences during their graduation or something of that sort. And he said 1,200 lecturers were to be recruited. The truth of the matter is that the 1,200 lecturers is woefully insignificant, even for us as an institution. Winneba. Winneba has about 4 campuses. 1,200 is woefully insufficient to augment the shortage of lecturers. We really need lecturers. But my worry is that the approach that is taken by UTAG leadership is a little bit too little, too late. It's too little, too late. Winneba, we've already admitted our students. They've registered. In fact, as we speak, they are going through orientation. You understand? University of Education, Winneba, we've admitted our students. They've registered, they are going through orientation. If you go to any of the public universities in this country, all of them, they've admitted their students. So how do you say that you are going to reduce what? You are going to cut down on admissions when you've already given the person admission? Are you going to revoke the admission? Do you understand what I'm saying? And even beyond that, does UTAG have a say, or are they in a position to determine who is admitted or not? They are not. They are not in that position. How it is in the hands of management.
How do you think this needs to be resolved?
No, I think there needs to be dialogue. There needs to be dialogue. And in terms of dialogue, there needs to be alternative ways. I mean, universities have something they call internally generated funds. Can we use some to recruit lecturers?
Is it possible?
I don't know.
Are you being realistic?
No, I'm not in management, but I think that's one way to go. I mean, can government be convinced that, look, even though you have this policy going on, if you do not recruit lecturers, the Faculty of Science is going to collapse.
But is that not the truth, that we don't have enough?
Yeah, it is. But what I'm saying is that
of very good academicians.
The threat that is being issued is too little, too late.
Because admissions have
already elapsed. Admissions have elapsed. So if you had done your checks well, you would have known that this threat that is being issued is null and void from the onset.
All right, so we have had in the studio Dr. Ahmed Jinapor. He is a lecturer and helping us do the discussions, and as an academician, he ended on that very note because we sought his independent views on the concerns and the threats by the University Teachers Association of Ghana. Of course, he's a member too, so he aligns himself to whatever it is that the overall body says, but he has an independent view as well. But we hope that you've enjoyed the discussion this morning. We're taking a break, and then IB will be here with a lot more entertainment. Do stay on.